Yeah, everything looks good. Welcome to the stream tonight. We are going to be creating a new project. So we don't have a project right now. So we're going to go through the steps of creating a new project. And part of that, I wanted to go over just something with like Node and NPM. And so I wanted to go over this grid. There's the link to it. This grid is a list of every version of Angular and everything that's compatible with it. If you look, all the way back to 1.0 beta, it tells us exactly what version of TypeScript we can use, what version of Node and everything. Today, we are going to be creating a brand new NX workspace, most likely on Angular 14. If we look, this is the version of the framework, right? This is the version of the CLI, and these are the versions of Node that it's compatible with. And then, we've got the versions of RX. No, this isn't RxJS, this is TypeScript. And these are the versions of RxJS that it's compatible with. But when I set up a new project in Angular, I always like to take a look at this. The tool that I use to manage my dependencies is Volta. And so this says we can go greater than 1610. But when we list, right now I'm using 1421 by default. So all I want to do is I just want to do a Volta install. I'm going to say node at greater than 1610. And that's it. And Volta is going to go out and set up my default package for me. So by doing that, we can see that it didn't have to download anything because I probably already have the latest version of Angular somewhere. So it just swapped over, and we can see that now if I do a Volta list, it tells me that I'm using Node at 16.18.1, and we can verify this with a Node-V. We're at 16.18.1. If I want to go back to 14, it's not Node, it's Volta install Node at 14. And you'll see that, it instantly swapped it. And if I do my Node-V, then we're back on 14. But that's not where we want to be. So let's go back to Node greater than 16. So we're going to create a brand new NX workspace. Well, we'll use npx. I'm curious why that didn't work. Nope, it just doesn't like that. So npx create NX workspace at latest. I need to install the latest packages. Sure, I'm good with that. So we will install those. Choose your style. We're going to go integrated to be simple, but we're going to pick an Angular workspace. Our repository name is going to be dynamic components. The application name will be dynamic components. Default style will be SCSS. Yeah, we're going to turn on the distributed caching. And NX is now going to create so when it says 15.0.13, this is the NX version. So it's creating a version 15 workspace in NX that will probably install Angular version 14.2. So I guess while this is running in the background, it's a good time to talk about what specifically I mean when I talk about dynamic components, right? What I want to explore today are some various solutions that I've used and come across over the past little bit for lazy loading components into your Angular application. And I've used these strategies for lazy loading dialogues into the application so that they aren't even loaded until somebody clicks the button where the dialogue needs to open. Lazy loading just components themselves. So one of the applications that I've used at work, we're creating this dynamic workflows That's what we've been working on a lot at work. And one of the things in creating that dynamic workflow is that they can add any step that they want. And so our left side nav needs to behave kind of like a router, but originally we used the router to do this, but ran into some issues that we wanted to overcome. And so rather than use a router, we're dynamically swapping components in and out based on how they navigate through the menu on the left-hand side of the screen, which has been really cool and a lot of fun, and it behaves a lot like a router. And then the last thing that I've been working with, which has been, it's been a good challenge. We're dynamically building forms on the fly. So as part of the workflow, there are certain forms that need to be put together where people can input data that they need to collect along with what they're doing, and we've got some interesting requirements. One of the big requirements we've got is that we have certain fields that need to be bundled together, and by that I mean that if you add this bundle of fields, you need everything inside of there together at the same time. So you can't add just one of the fields from this bundle, you have to add the whole bundle, which leads to some interesting things that you have to do in the form when you construct it. But beyond that, we have a read-only view of the form. And being able to do the read-only view of the form and have these dynamic bundled fields that could be nested inside of each other led to some interesting things that we needed to do. So NX is all set up. Everything's done for us. We do our ls here. We should see that we have our dynamic components. So if we go into our dynamic components, and inside of here, everything's all set up, and we're all good to go. I'm not going to check anything. I'm not going to look at versions or anything like that. This set us up with npm because I used npm to run it. I need to figure out why I couldn't get pnpm to build this for us. But that's okay. We'll use npm today. This, I'm not opposed to using npm. So here we go. We've got this. So now if we go into our dynamic components, and inside of here we have a Git folder. So we should be able to open this up in Git Kraken. I like to call it Git Kraken because it sounds like a common phrase that people use. Inside of here, we can open a repo. We are going to look in our project directories. And within our dev project, we have our dynamic components. Here's our repo. We're going to push this. We're going to add a remote. We're going to push to GitHub. The remote name will be origin. That's all good. Public access, that's fine. Actually, we do want public access. Oh, I wanted to rename the branch to main, but that's okay. So we've now created the GitHub. So let's go grab that. This is our GitHub repo. So we can already see that Renovate is already doing some stuff for us. Renovate's pretty good. I like it a lot. Everything's there. We've committed everything. Our initial commit is all good. If we do our nx serve, it should build and serve everything. And this is our starting point. While that's building, let's go ahead and we will open our project, and our project is this one. So there we go. This is our project. So for right now, we built successfully. We will open the build in our browser. And when you build something in NX, it gives you this awesome page that we're going to immediately destroy, but everything's working. So we will go ahead and wipe out our NX. So if we go and we look, the way this builds is it adds an app, and in dynamic components in source, we can go into our app. And so if we look at our app component.html, all we need to do is we'll take out this dynamic component. We're going to trust this project. The other thing I need to do is make sure that we are at a good font size. So by taking that out, we've taken all of that out. The only other thing we need to do, here it is, this NX welcome component. So we'll also delete this component. There we go. So we've now deleted that component. So now our app component is empty. There's nothing here. We're in a state where we can do some dynamic stuff. So we'll go here. We will say that we removed NX default components, component, and we'll push that up. Oh, you know what? Let's cancel that. And well, we can push. One thing I haven't done is I haven't set up the master branch so that it doesn't allow pushes straight to it. But let's make sure we're good citizens, and we will do stream November 10, 2022 branch. So we'll build on a branch today. We won't push straight to the master branch today. And so now we're in a good spot. However, one thing I do want to do is the NX plugin hasn't been updated for WebStorm. And because of that, when I want to use NX a lot, I use VS Code. I actually really like VS Code. You know, I probably should use it more. Let's start. How do we want to do this? Well, we'll start by putting everything in the main project, because I want to show how by using lazy loading, we can keep our components in the main component. So we'll keep our components in the main component. So within here, within the app, so we'll add a new folder. This will be our components folder. And we'll start simple. So we don't have any components yet. Let's add one. We're going to use NX generate. We're going to generate a component. And yeah, we'll use the narwhal version. Our component here, we'll call this our dynamic host component. So my dynamic host will hold the first thing that I want to show. No module, because we aren't using modules. These will all be standalone. Oh, did we set this up as a standalone? Well, if we didn't, we can fix it. We'll use on push. We'll set our display to block. We won't export. We will inline the template, and it will be a standalone component. And that is that. Did we get a standalone? No, we've got an app module. That's okay. We're okay with an app module right now. I probably should have gone into the custom setup, because then I probably could have specified PNPM. I probably could have specified that I want a standalone project, things like that. But right now we're kind of in a hybrid state because I just chose the default. But we will go ahead and generate this component. And then we're going to generate a couple of components that we're going to load dynamically. Wait, did it already create that? So there it is. Okay, that's why it's giving me a problem. So we're going to generate, we're going to be really, really unique, and we're going to have component one. So our dry run, we generated component one. So there we go. There's component one. We're also going to generate component two. When this is done, so now if we look in our components, we've got component one and we've got our dynamic host. I'm just going to generate all of these really quick. And once they're all generated, we'll switch back to WebStorm. I'm running a pre-release version, and that's why it doesn't support the NX component. And we'll do component 3 also. So we'll have 3 components that we can dynamically load, and we can see some interesting ways of doing this, right? So there's component 3. So we'll run this. And there's some fun things that we can do here. So there we go. So we've got our dynamic host, we've got component 1, component 2, and component 3. So we're good to go. So within our app component, well, first things first, we've added a bunch of components. So we added dynamic components. Or actually, they aren't dynamic yet. We've just added components to project. They don't really do anything. There's nothing special about them yet. Again, these are now up on the branch. So let's do some stuff, right? So within this, we've got our components, component 1, 2, 3, and we've got our dynamic component host. So let's get our host on the page. So our selector is dynamic-components and then dynamic host. Okay. So in our app component, we are going to add dynamic-components, and we're going to add the host. And we're going to import this. Oh, this is because, so if we open this, I just want to make sure it needs to be added to the, oh, we've got a problem here and problem here. And do I not have prettier set up? That looks a lot better. There we go. We're in a good state. We've got our dynamic host component and we've got that. So now if we go and NX serve again, so everything's running and we've got our dynamic host, you know, it says it works great. So now let's go into our dynamic host component. It's display block. No, I don't want you to compile SCSS to CSS. So one thing we want to do here is let's do margin auto. The other thing we want to do is we will do width, and we'll say that it is 80%. And height, we will make it 100%. And let's give it a border of, we'll do 1 pixel solid. We'll just do var, and we'll say border color. But if there isn't a border color, we will do an HSL, and we will do 0 degrees, 50%. I think 50%. That's a red. We don't want the saturation. Let's take the saturation down to like 10%. That's a black. So go 90%. There we go. A gray, and we'll do 10% here. And maybe 80%. There we go. So there's our gray. There's a gray that we'll use. Well, let's go 60% on this. So our border is a little bit darker. So now if we go look, our dynamic host works. So in our styles.scss, here we'll just add our body, and here we will set it to be height. We'll do 98 view height, just to give us a little bit off the bottom. So when that compiles, if we look at our body, it has the proper style. If we take that off, it doesn't work. 98's too big. We'll give it like 96. But there we are. So dynamic host works, great, but that's not really what we want. Let's add a padding. And here, we're going to set a CSS var for this. So we'll call this base padding, and our base padding will be we'll do 0.5 0.5 rem. So here we'll just do our var, and since we've set it, we can just say base padding, and that will set up our base padding for us. The reason I'm using CSS vars is that we can access these later on without having to do like SCSS imports and things like that, because they cascade. And if we decide to change it for, part of the tree, we can do that. So there we go. Now we've got our padding. Everything looks good. Oh, we need our box sizing. So in our styles.scss, let's see, I always have to look this up, the border box hack. This is a common thing that winds up happening in SCSS. But in our styles, the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure, and I know why the 100% didn't work. We can do 100% here. And in our HTML, we can do a height 100%. There we go. So now if we go and we look, yeah. We've got a margin on this. Where's that margin coming from? So our HTML is now 100%. Our box sizing is border box. Our body is 100%. Our box sizing. Let's just do border dash box here. Here we go. We've got our dynamic component. It's sitting in the middle of the screen, but it doesn't really do anything.